Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of bass in this menu, and I turned it down. Trivia. There are 20 points of trivia to find. Dragon by H.P. Lovecraft, the Eldritch Box DLC, the Little Glass Bottle DLC, and Tales of Herring Lake. Well, at least the developers are still around and making things. Although I thought this had just come out. I mean, the build is from last month. Nay. Alright. Dagon is a faithful, interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work. Okay. Focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progress through locations along the plot.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Yeah, that's very Lovecraft. During the game, you'll encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look for the Elder Sign. You can also access all the found facts later, sure.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Yeah, and that's going straight into my ears, Tidbeck. They did not chill on the bass in that menu. Penniless, window?
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Knowledge trap? Okay, the bass comes back if you click on something. There's no setting for bass or music. Literally, sounds and voiceovers, and I mean, sounds maybe turns the bass down enough, but then we might not be able to hear anything.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
The packet of which I was supercargo.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation. So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Good. I mean, that's how World War I rocked for the most part. I did not know the British used the words Hun as a synonym for Germans.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
That's suicide. If you're a naval prisoner of war, you mostly just continue running your boat just for the other side until you get to port, and then you become prisoner and who's treated like you're a merchant marine, so they send you back basically, like, go home.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator.
You don't know where your ship was going?
Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
That was narrated from the Darkest Dungeon. So many games credit Darkest Dungeon as their inspiration. But you seem so angry at it, Cogswell. Not a fan. This is not the first time I've seen you yell at it.
And for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
He's not much of a navigator, so I guess that's why this dumbass got off a boat. Abandoned a perfectly safe boat.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
Well done, Tidbeck.
The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
That one seems to be having some issues.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
Ooh, monotonous undulations is quality writing right there.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished, for there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight.
This is not even a
save
walking
vast
simulator.
reach of
We're playing a
black
kinetic
slime.
novel.
Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Let's continue.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Them's aliens?
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might.
I'm not mad at this at all. This is just... This is
Nor
fine.
were there any seafowl to
lovely
prey
piece of
on
art.
the dead things.
So this man thinks a volcano threw him up here? Uh-huh. Interesting idea, but volcanoes are not so gentle as to not wake you as you are launched from your boat.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
You hung out at this boat, the one that's got tentacles on the other side. Not gonna question these tentacles. Just looking for a good time.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease.
The third morning? What happened? There's a day missing, isn't there?
The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal. All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Oh, a whale. Is there a secret to be found? Why did you stop me here? To admire the whale?
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
To the Black Pyramid, you say? Horrors of the Ocean. Oh, Mad Base. We're gonna have to not read these things. But yes, some Horrors of the Ocean. I mean, that's kind of how Cthulhu rolls, or
By the
Lovecraft
fourth evening,
rolls.
I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
Sir, have you never seen a mountain before?
An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Thing's got glowy eyes.
I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but
They weren't
ere
dreams.
the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again, and in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
The Eminence. What? Secrets? The loner. Lovecraft's not ever frowning, eccentric, grumpy loner. He considered himself to be a person who appreciated humor. Moreover, he would often meet with his friends in his apartments or in various cafes in Brooklyn and Manhattan. At times, his social life was so intensive his work would suffer for months. Put an end to daily meetings, slaughtering New York cafeterias, where it's hiding at home and reading with the main room light turned off, pretending he wasn't there whenever a friend knocked at his door. He also had another method of deterring his guests, which involved greeting them in a bathrobe. Does that deter a lot of guests? I mean, it might. With an unmade bed visible in the background and piles of paper scattered across the floor. I mean, that's a strategy.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough
Yeah,
to
bathrobe
illuminate.
seems fine.
I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
I thought this was like a few pages long. How is this still going?
Ledges
Alright, I'm
and
gonna start the poll.
outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
Yes, through the darkness.
Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Secrets. Secrets. Secrets that we can't read because the base is in Ted's?
Urged on
Oh, it's
by
already
an
7
impulse
o'clock?
which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath,
Renegade might be going live soon.
gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Where is this? Where is it gone? Secrets? Secrets? Symbols? Ah.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself.
Or is it a...
But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer
think?
scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
This is just a lovely experience. For a little Lovecraftian horror story, or very
For
much
despite
Lovecraft
its
horror story.
enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined.
No, I didn't mean to stop you, line. I didn't know I could cancel a line.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm.
Oh, it's got markings on it.
And revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm,
step on in.
the
What could go
wavelets
wrong?
washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith,
Cyclopean.
on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
Unknown to me. Sir, are you claiming you understand hieroglyphics from other cultures?
consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Any theme storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed?
To shreds, you say?
To shreds. So much decaying bodies torn to shreds.
Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré.
Renegu is starting up, so we'll just keep playing this. And Renegu's live, we'll toss on over to him. He's
I think that
got a
these
couple
things
minutes
were
left on his
supposed to
starting
depict
screen.
men, at least a certain sort of men.
Well,
Though the
humanoid.
creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Yo, he's calling out, competitors. Hey, Xeroxia, how are you doing this fine Friday? We're playing, as it turns out, a kinetic novel based off Lovecraft's Dagon short story.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy,
very
bulging
well-done
eyes,
experience.
and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
And you think this monolith from the bottom of the ocean was not eroded because...
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
Oh, I'm
I
doing
think
well.
I went mad then.
Oh yeah, because you looked at a creature from, yeah, no, that'll do it. A cosmic horror of some sort. Oh yeah, no, this is really well done. I did start the poll, but I didn't even see what it said, and we're rating Renegu anyway, so we're just gonna hang out here a little bit longer. I might not finish this on stream. It seems to be keep going. I thought this was a shorter story than it's turning out to be. Again, here it is in Steam.
Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my
Definitely
delirious
check out the other
journey back to the
developers,
stranded
the rest
boat,
of the work by
I
this
remember
developer.
little.
They seem to have maybe more of these short stories done in this form.
I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
I sang a great deal. Laughed oddly. Okay. It's a good sign that you may in fact be mad. I will agree with you, sir. You may have gone mad at that moment by looking at that cosmic horror.
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
We're gonna open Oblivion? We could do that.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital. Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
The heavy bass in the menus is not great for headphones. I will say that.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
We didn't like a fish god. Main deity of the Philistine, Middle East, ancient god of fertility and crops. Often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name. Underwater deity ruling over the deeps. Yeah. Secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Well, what do you know? Hey, Melrune. That's a similar cult. Huh.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
Writer. Here's company Arkham House. New controversy, good versus evil. Never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Okay. Not that way. This way. Back to our desk. Lock. Renegade apparently has had some technical difficulties or something, because he's no longer online. We're starting up. Give Renegade a little bit longer. Are you supposed to say something, game? The atmosphere is very nice, even though we're inside again. Pillars? No?
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
Oh, we're back here. Alright. Thing followed you, you say. Oh! Your wall is very fish-themed.
I tried morphine. But the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So
Yeah.
now, I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Bottle of poison. Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. Hated tobacco. Used to smoke it when he was 12. He also had a very strong opinion on alcohol. For the matter of drinking, I've never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate, natural pose of human intellect. Pose. Alright, so he didn't like alcohol. Well, I don't have that problem. Well, no, I kind of agree with him, except alcohol is very tasty. To me, as a concerningly so, but, you know, family history. Something to look out for. Cheers.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm. A mere freak of fever as I lay
You run on it
sun-stricken and
like
raving
a
in
robot,
the open
huh?
boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Any of these dudes extra stuff? No? Like, this is excellently done.
The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Knows you saw it. Is displeased by your knowledge of it.
It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
We hope you enjoyed immersing yourself in our little pool of cosmic horror. We'd appreciate it if you took a moment to rate Dagon and check out our other games and DLCs. Yeah, and I do recommend this. This is an excellent kinetic novel experience. Atmosphere, the sounds, maybe not headphones that are tuned for extra bass.